This happened back when I was around 13 years old. My nan used to call me over once in a while to have sleepovers at her place. She lived all alone in a really old house, so I can understand why she wanted someone over once in a while. Her husband had passed away, and she didn't have any company at her big empty house. She'd been living in that house for ages, longer than I had been alive at that point. Whenever I'd go over at her place to spend the night, I'd sleep in the guest bedroom, which was right next to hers. To be completely honest, I never enjoyed being in that house. I always got this weird gut feeling at night whenever I was alone in that room. Even my dad admitted that my nan's house always felt off. Whenever he visited her house to pick me up, he also felt this weird, unexplainable feeling. Some days, the feeling was actually so bad, she was understanding and always let me sleep beside her whenever I was too scared to sleep alone. Whenever I'd sleep alone in the guest bedroom, I would always have a dimly lit lamp beside me. There was no way I was going to sleep in total darkness alone in that room. One night, everything was as usual. Me and my nan went to our separate rooms to sleep, and I fell asleep pretty quickly. I don't remember how long I was asleep, but I was awoken by a noise of some sort, and when I looked to my left where my night lamp would be, the lamp was off, and that's when I saw it. I saw my nan standing there with pitch black eyes smiling while holding the lamp switch. My body was so frozen I couldn't even scream. She just stood there smiling and staring into my soul without moving or saying a word. She was as still as a mannequin. I finally gained control over my body and hid under the covers in fear. As I was hiding, I was hoping that what I saw was just a dream, and when I opened the covers again, that she'd be gone and I'd wake up. I got back out from under the covers. There she was, still standing at the exact same spot, with the exact same creepy expression, just staring at me. The night lamp was still off. I got back under the covers, shaking in fear. I decided to check one last time, and when I came back up from under the covers, she was gone, and the night lamp was back on. I jumped out of my bed and ran into my nan's room, crying and screaming because of how scared I was. She asked me what was wrong, and when I explained it, she just brushed it off and told me not to worry about it. She told me I probably had a nightmare. I know for a fact I wasn't dreaming. I was fully awake and aware of everything when it all happened. A couple of years later, she sadly passed away. When I told my family about this incident, they all told me that I was just dreaming. I know I wasn't. I know what I saw was real, and I was fully awake. Back when I lived with my stepdad, mum, and stepbrother, we lived in a pretty old house which looked like it could break at any moment. Me, my cousins, and my stepbrother always went to play in our guest room that we had downstairs where my grandparents lived. Over time, we'd always have weird encounters with unexplainable entities, especially upstairs in my room. That's where most of the disturbing stuff used to happen. My very first weird encounter was when I was using that one dog Snapchat filter in my room, and it picked up multiple faces right next to mine that weren't there, as if there were other people sitting right next to me which I couldn't see. I know this could have been my phone glitching out, but knowing that house, I wouldn't be surprised if my phone did actually detect some other entities sitting right next to me. So that was my very first scary encounter in that house. From that point onwards, weird stuff started happening more frequently. One of the scariest one, which still haunts me to this day, is the following. My cousins were over at our house for a sleepover, and we were all hanging out. We were upstairs watching TV and playing some video games. We were making jokes and doing scary stuff together, just the normal kind of things that cousins do. Keep in mind, it was really late at night. It was the weekend, so we didn't have school or anything the next day, so we could stay up late and enjoy. Because of all the playful shouting and screaming with my cousins, I got thirsty and decided to go downstairs into the kitchen to get a glass of water. As I was walking down the stairs, I was stopped midway. I heard the doorbell ring multiple times. I thought it was odd because of how late it was. I walked a couple of steps down and stood at the bottom of the stairs from where I could see our front door of the house. What I saw made my heart drop. The big door in front of my screen door was already opened, and there was a little girl outside with her hair tied into 2 pigtails. She was smiling and continuously kept ringing the doorbell, even when she saw me standing there. I told my stepdad about it, and he told me he didn't hear it. I felt like I was going crazy. I was clearly hearing the doorbell loud and clear, and the little girl was standing right in front of my eyes. Then, all of a sudden, the ringing stopped and she just stood there, smiling and now waving at me. I was totally creeped out and just ran towards our front door and closed it shut as fast as I could. I could have sworn I heard her say hi or something after I closed the door. Apparently no one else heard the doorbell besides me. I know for sure I wasn't hallucinating. It's like as if only I was allowed to see and hear all that stuff. I can still see the face of that little girl standing on our front door smiling at me, and it still haunts me. This story is about me and my girl best friend. At the time of this incident, we were both 8 years old. We lived in Florida, about 15 minutes away from Tampa. It was one of our many sleepovers we had, and it was no different from others. We played with Barbies, watched movies, read books, until we couldn't take it anymore and went to bed around 9 or 10. I turned off the lights and climbed up to my top bunk, where both me and my friend were going to sleep on the same bed. As I laid down, something immediately didn't feel right. The house I lived in was relatively old, and our landlord sucked and never came to fix anything. He'd only care when our rent was due. Before getting in bed, I flipped on my fan and had my mum turn the AC down. But as I got in bed, my fan was turned off. So was the AC. But I thought the power went out and didn't think much of it. About 20 minutes went by and I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was dying of heat stroke. I wasn't sure if my friend was awake, so I whispered her name quietly. She responded immediately, saying, "I can't sleep, but it's not because it's hot." I looked over and could barely see her in the dark. I could only make out her silhouette. I looked up at the ceiling and let out a sigh. I said, "What is it then?" She responded with, "It's the man in the corner." When I say I got chills, I got chills. I looked over at her slowly and then turned my head to look at the corner. At first I thought she was lying because I didn't see anything. I let out a sigh of relief and started to adjust my blanket, and that's when I saw him. A man, dark and tall, staring right at the both of us. I immediately gripped my friend's hand and closed my eyes hard. I whispered to her that we have to call Mum, and I felt my friend nod. But we both just laid there, unable to move or speak out of fear. All of the sudden, I felt the movement of someone climbing up the bed and crawling slowly. The blankets moved with the movement, and I slowly opened my eyes. The man was slowly starting to crawl towards us on our bed. I was gasping for air and looked over to see my friend watching as well, both of us too paralyzed to move or do anything. I looked back at the man and could only see his outline, no features. It was too dark in the room to make out any of his facial features. I held my friend's hand tight and told her to scream with me as loud as possible when I tapped her hand. She slowly nodded, and as I watched the man slowly reach for my face, I tapped her hand and we both screamed for my mum. My mum came running in, no later than 20 seconds, and turned on the light, and both me and my friend were holding each other crying. There was no trace of the man. My mum checked all doors, saying they were locked and weren't even touched. We both slept on the couch that night, watching Barbie movies and holding each other tightly. To this day, I don't know what it was or who it was. We both saw it. If only one of us had seen it, it could have been a hallucination, but we both did. I don't know what it was, but I will always remember the scary feeling of that stranger man being so close to my face.